Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This lecture we're going to look at S3 access control lists. Now, as you saw in one of the previous lectures, whenever you use ACLs, it does warn that it is legacy. S3 ACLs are essentially as old as S3 itself. So it's a legacy access control mechanism that predates IAM. And AWS actually recommends sticking to IAM policies and S3 bucket policies. However, if you need to apply policies on the objects themselves, then you have to use S3 ACLs. So with S3 ACLs, these are on the per file basis or per object basis. Bucket policies can only be applied at the bucket level, whereas S3 ACLs can be applied to individual files or objects. So use cases, well, exactly that. If you need fine-grained permissions on individual files or objects within S3, you should use S3 ACLs. And like I said in the last lecture, bucket policies are limited to 20 kilobytes in size, so you might consider using S3 ACLs if you find that your bucket policy is growing too large. I very much doubt that, but that is also a use case. So let's log into the AWS console as a root account or somebody with administrator access. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. I'm going to go over to S3, which of course is always under storage, and we're going to go back into that bucket and we're going to delete the policy that we just created. So my Cloud Guru security, let's go over to our permissions and let's go over to our bucket policy and just hit delete. So it is now deleted. I'm able to do anything I want with this bucket provided I have the right IAM permissions. Let's go over and let's upload an object. I'm going to go ahead and add a file. Here we've got my hello.txt. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that and add this file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit upload. That has now added the file to this bucket. And by default, this bucket currently has no bucket policies. So again, it is empty. And the access control list is going to basically allow. So it says in here, access for your AWS account. So do I want my root account to be able to list objects, write objects, and read the permissions? Yes, 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 yes. In here, I can actually add access for other AWS accounts. So go in here and basically enter in the account ID or the email address. And then I could go in and allow that account to list objects, write objects, etc., etc. And don't forget, sorry, this is being done at a bucket level. If I wanted to go over and do this at an object level, if I just click on the overview and click in my bucket, I can actually just go down to permissions and click on permissions in here. And now what we're doing is we're adding this at the object level. So, and you can see it up here where it says hello.txt. Now you can see in here that I have access from my own AWS account, access for other AWS accounts, and then public access. Now you note that there's no button. I can't just go in and add my IAM users and start, changing the permissions, whether or not they're allowed to read or write, etc. So you cannot actually do it by the console. The way you do it is by using either the CLI or the API. And you have to do it using two things. You need your account number, so you're going to need your AWS account number, and then what's called an owner canonical user ID. And again, you can get your account number by clicking up here and then just going over to my security credentials and going through that. But your canonical user ID, you can get it for the root account. Again, you would just click in here, go to my security credentials, and it's going to give you this little warning message. Just say hit continue and then click into account identifiers. That will give it for your root access account. However, for IAM, what you have to do is you have to go over to your terminal window and you need to enter in AWS space S3 API space and then list buckets. That will give you your canonical user ID for IAM, assuming of course you've configured your terminal access with your IAM user. So you've been using your secret access key, your access key ID and secret access key for that individual user. It's completely beyond the scope of this exam to know how to do that. What you should just be aware at a high level is that yes, you can apply object ACLs to individual IAM users, but you cannot do it through the console. You have to do it through the CLI or API. Let's go back over here. You can also add access for other AWS accounts. All you need to do is enter in the account ID in there. It's literally that simple, and then read object permissions, and write object. So you can go ahead and do that. I'm not going to do a whole lecture on it, but just be aware that you can do that at an object ACL level. And then of course you can do public access. So to keep things simple, let's go ahead and just grant read access to everyone, so that people will be able to read this hello.txt in my security bucket. We click over to Amazon S3, we'll note that we've only got that object in the bucket, and it actually says here not public. So when it says public, it means that you've got a specific access control list, a bucket policy allowing public read access. Typically it will look like this. So it will say effect allow principal everything action S3 get objects, and then the resource, and it's just the name of the bucket, the ARN of the bucket / and then star. Note in here, we're not defining any IAM users or any AWS accounts, etc. We're literally saying make this entire bucket public. By default, nothing is public. So we can see in my security bucket, the entire bucket itself is not public, but I have made this public. So hello.txt is public. If I click on it and click on the link, I should be able to go in and read it. And it just says up here, hello Cloud Gurus, very, very original, I know. So now that we've made this object public, from a ACL point of view, what would happen if we change our IAM permissions so that we are not allowed to read this object? Let's go back over to IAM. So I'm back in IAM. I'm going to go over to my policies, and I'm going to load up my S3. It was read, it was write object policy. So in here, this policy basically allows us to write S3 put objects. We can go in and edit the policy. You can use the visual editor if you want. So I would go in and essentially we could go in and change this to service S3 actions write. And let's go ahead and just say all read actions. So I'm going to say all read actions, and I'm going to leave everything else and hit review policy. So what is this allowing me to do? It's full read and limited write. Let's go ahead and hit save changes. And what we can actually do is just go in and edit the policy, and we can edit it from JSON. And so instead of effect allow, let's go ahead and hit effect deny. So we're changing an allow to a deny, and essentially we're going in and you can see it's all my get. There's one put in there and it's list as well, but it's basically all the read plus one write, and we're denying everything from IAM. So we'll go ahead and hit review policy. Sorry, it is case sensitive, so just do it to deny with a capital D. It's not all D for deny. Go ahead and hit save. And now we'll go ahead and save our changes, and that is now going to deny our, all our users in there. So what we need to do, if we just log out quickly, I'm going to sign out and I'm going to log in as my IAM user. Okay, so I've signed in as my user. I'm just going to go over to S3, and I'm going to try and read that object in the bucket. So we've got, where was it? My Cloud Guru security bucket. You can see the object in here. If I go ahead and click on the actual object itself, it will give me a link. And if I go ahead and click on that, it is still public. So you might be thinking, and I just did this myself, I'm like, hang on, how does that work? I thought an explicit deny always, overrides an allow. Well, let's actually just go back and have a look at what is happening here. And when we're actually clicking on the link, note that if you just look down the actual bottom of the screen, that we are just going to that link directly. We're not using any method of authentication. We are literally going there as an anonymous user, and we're accessing that object. And of course, our bucket ACL allows that. We have made that object public. However, in here, I am logged in as my S3 user. What happens if I click on open here? Would I be allowed to open it? And when I click on open here, I am actually trying to open this as the user. And of course, we're going to get an error message, access denied. So my specific deny is still trumping my specific allow because I am doing this using my authenticated user. With the other link, what I was doing is I was clicking on it, and because I was not using any kind of authentication at all, I was hitting it anonymously. For that reason, I was able to open it. So that can be a little trick that can trip people up, but just remember, when I click on this, you can see the link below. It's not asking for any kind of authentication whatsoever, but when I'm doing it through here, I am trying to open this as an authenticated user. So do just bear that in mind. So the next lesson, we're going to look at all three. How do we resolve conflicts between the three? And it is pretty much the most important lecture in this entire course. This is probably worth about, I'd say, at least 5 to 10 questions on iterations of this, these policies. So being able to understand and read policies is crucial for your exam. So go in and play with the IAM policy generator, play with the S3 bucket policy generator, make your own bucket policies, try and restrict access to individual folders within S3 buckets. The only way you're really going to learn this is by playing with it. Make sure you're comfortable with bucket policies and with IAM policies, and then watch the next lecture. The next lecture we're going to go through as to how to troubleshoot it. And literally, if you just remember the process that we cover in the next lecture, you don't even really need to be able to read JSON all that brilliantly. I'm not an expert by any means, but if you remember the actual process flow or the logic flow in the next lecture, then you're going to smash this part of the exam. So if you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.